Welcome to another Raid Shadow Legends video. Hope you guys are having an amazing day. Guys, I'm finally bringing in some good news, or at least I surely hope so. They are finally rebalancing some champions that we have been waiting for a very long time. Let me start directly with the Void Legendary. Correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe in the past he actually got a bit of a rebalance already, but I might be wrong on it. Yes, you guys guessed it right. I am talking about Ailil, the myth, the legend. He's finally getting a buff, guys. And I'm actually pretty excited for this buff. I cannot wait to start using Ailil because overall he looks pretty cool. Unfortunately, he was never really performing super well, right? But let me just quickly walk you through what Plarium has to say. With the rebalance, Ailil received a simple yet impactful damage boost, making him an even greater threat on the battlefield. We increased the damage output for both of his A1 skill and A3 skill. His A2 now additionally ignores 25% of the enemy defense, further amplifying his offensive potential, which sounds pretty interesting. And his aura was updated to boost all allies attack in all battles, providing greater team-wide synergy. So we're going to get attack aura instead of the crit rate, which, let's be honest, is pretty useless. So with A1, basically we're just going to get a damage increase. Now, I'm not 100% sure how much of a damage increase we are going to see in here in terms of multipliers, but rest assured, I will be dropping videos on this and the other champion that is going to get buffed. And I will compare Ailil with the main account where I am right now, and hopefully we're going to get him on the test server, so I'm going to be able to give them the exact same gear, take them versus the exact same stage, and see how much the numbers actually changed. On the A2, at the moment, he attacks an enemy, will ignore strength and stone skin, increased defense, and ally protection buffs. And that's about it. After the buff, he will ignore 25% of the target's defense, but his damage is not actually going to get increased. So he's going to get a very similar treatment with what Luperfang, Mazaman Luperfang got. They just added ignore defense effect rather than increasing the damage as well. So I'm very curious how this will perform now after the changes. Then on the A3, basically just increase the damage. Everything else stays as it is. To be honest, he never really had a bad kit. This is a bit of a polymorph magnet, but now you can actually use the wand, the relic, and reduce your chance. You can play around with the builds and basically hope that you're not going to get polymorph non-stop, right? But either way, that's what changes on him. With the passive is going to be pretty much exactly the same thing, and the aura will become attack instead of the crit rate. Really curious to see if the damage is actually substantial, the damage increase, right? Or is just a 0.01, which is pretty much pointless, right? But hopefully he got a good treatment, right? Hopefully he got a Baron treatment or even the Sick Front treatment in a way or another, even though he's not really at that level. But we're gonna have to wait and see. Definitely stay tuned for a video. The next champion that we have on the list, guys. This one I'm sure a lot of you guys have been waiting for. Personally, I have been waiting for this for a long time, and I'm talking about the Calamitous finally getting the freaking buff, the deserved buff. And he is a bit more complex than Ailil, okay? So let me just quickly walk you through the wall of text that I have right here on the left monitor. With the rebalance, we aimed to not only boost Calamitous' damage, but also enhance his kit to better reflect the unique strengths of each of his forms. So, starting with the base form, Calamitous received an extra 20% critical hit chance to both his A1 and A2. Now, the A3 will not have that extra 20% critical hit, which is a bit weird. Why not give it across the entire kit? So we build him only with 80% crit rate. Why not on this skill? It is a bit dumb, in my opinion, because right now, we're basically going to have to still build him with 100% crit rate. So it's pointless that they gave him the 80% buff, the 20% buff crit rate on the A1 and A2 when the A3 doesn't have it, right? Maybe I'm missing something, but to be honest, it's pretty weird. Now, the A3 will ignore 20% of the target's defense. So that's nice, but why not give him the rest of the treatment as well? Because honestly, that's pointless that they gave him an extra 20% critical hit chance to every other skill on both of the forms or whatever they've done. If one skill is missing, it's pointless because you still need 100% crit rate for this skill to actually be in effect, right? So I'm really not understanding the whole idea behind it. I know they gave him ignore defense, but still. With a passive, basically now Calamitous places a shield and an increased attack buff on himself at the start of his turn, which is much better than getting a heal of 50% of their max HP, which in some cases is good, but in some cases is not. I'll rather have him with increased attack, right? Which is much better. But to be honest, the other part with the other part sounds pretty weak, you know. And the A2, because I forgot to mention that, in addition, his A2 now deals more damage and progressively ignores up to 25% defense with each consecutive hit. So basically, at the moment, each hit will ignore 10% of the target's defense. I'm pretty sure they will change it to a point where each hit will ignore a specific amount of the target's defense, all the way up to 25% when you're on the last hit, which, let's be honest, is not bad, right? Ignoring defense is always good. I think it's gonna be great for the Chimera now, and maybe even for Arena, to be honest. But for the Chimera, I think he's going to be a GOAT. Now, let me just quickly explain you. The A1, Ripping, cool. Attacks one enemy twice. Each hit has an extra 20% chance of inflicting a critical hit. Everything else stays as it is. With the A2, Horde of Calamity, attacks one enemy 4 times. Each hit has an extra 20% chance of inflicting a critical hit. The first hit will ignore 10% of the target's defense. Each subsequent hit will ignore an additional 5% of the target's defense. So basically, you're going to get up to 25%. And the damage got increased on this skill. So the multipliers are higher now, which is definitely something that was needed. With the A3, attacks all enemies. This attack is always critical. I do apologize for being an idiot, guys. Apologies, okay? I've been an idiot, and I forgot that this attack is always critical, so put the blame on me. I was the dumb one, okay? So he always crits with this skill. That's something that my eyes completely missed because I haven't used the champion in a very long time. So it does make sense for them to give him the 20% additional crit rate on every other skill except this one. So I'll take it back. And basically on this skill, he will ignore 20% of the target's defense, which will overall boost the damage, which is really good. And if this attack kills an enemy, etc., the rest of the things stay the same. So far, Calamitous got an amazing treatment, in my opinion. Boosted damage on the A2, which was kind of needed, and ignores more defense. Really nice. The passive will self-buff with increased attack and a shield. That shield could potentially help him a little bit versus the Ram form, but I'm not 100% sure. So that's the first form. Really good. I still believe that I'm so dumb that I've missed the part with this attack is always critical. Moving on to the alternate form, right? Let's see what they've done to the alternate form. Calamitous got an extra 20% critical hit chance of all of his attack skills, which means you can build this champion with only 80% critical rate. Amazing, because that will allow you to push more stats. Attack, crit damage, and basically is very similar with what Queen Eva has. Then, the A2 now ignores 20% of the target's defense baseline and increases up to 35% if the enemy is under a Hex debuff. So that's actually pretty nice. So you're going to have 20% baseline up to 35% if they are under a Hex, which is great for the Hydra. It can be great versus the Chimera too, don't get me wrong, but Hex is not really going to do much in there. It's just going to be basically like an extra debuff on the target. His A3 cooldown, now it got decreased to a 3-turn cooldown. Thank you, Plarium. This is something that I have been saying for a very long time. He needs to basically have the cooldowns decreased a little bit, because a 4-turn cooldown defense down is just not really going to cut it, right? So nothing else really changes in here. This skill is still going to pretty much do the same amount of damage. Now, with the passive, Calamity's passive now heals him by 30% of the damage he inflicts on enemies under Hex debuffs. And his attack will now increase by 20% for each enemy under a Hex debuff. Which means that he could potentially be really strong in the Hydra clan boss. He's definitely going to be way stronger than he was before, right? But I think with all of the changes now, he's definitely going to be maybe one of the top damage dealers for the Hydra clan boss, which is actually not bad at all. So let me just quickly walk you through all of the details, exactly how this skill will be. The A1 has an extra 20% chance of inflicting a critical hit. Everything else stays the same. The A2 attacks all enemies, has an extra 20% chance of inflicting a critical hit. Will ignore 20% of each enemy's defense and will ignore 35% of each target's defense instead if they are under a Hex debuff. The damage increases by 10 for each debuff on each target, okay? So that's pretty much the same. And the A3 has an extra percent critical hit chance, and the cooldown got decreased to a 3-turn cooldown instead. And the passive, basically, you don't have to kill anybody now because it will heal by 30% of the damage dealt on enemies under Hex and will increase the attack by 20% instead. And this will be probably the same aura, nothing else changes regarding to that. Overall, great changes on both of these champions. Of course, I am talking a bit too early on it because I'm not sure how much better are the multipliers now. But I like to see that they've actually modified a couple of the things in here. This skill being on a 4-turn cooldown, I guess, is fine. It's a shame that they haven't increased the multiplier on it either, but maybe the ignore defense effect is going to be more than enough to actually have a solid damage dealer, right? Either way, I'm happy with these changes for the moment. I might be disappointed once I'm going to try them. Hopefully that is not the case. Hopefully I will be excited once I'm going to basically try both of the champions, because I do have them available. Calamitas on my account is actually not booked. I do have a 5-star soul for him, but I will have to basically slowly work on getting him booked up and running, because I have a feeling he's going to be great for the Chimera. Now, I will require a 6-star crushing run for that, most likely, to make the most out of it. But other than that, I think he looks much better after the changes. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. How many of you guys are excited for any of these two champions? As usual, appreciate all of you guys watching. Much love, and I will catch you all in the next one. Peace.